Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Raise the Vibe. You're with Liz. I'm your host, Liz. And today I have Catherine Cochrane with me today. And I have had the pleasure of working with Catherine recently. She is doing a relationship with money financial literacy class that's coming up in the future. And so honored to be able to work with you on that with our friend, Ara James. And it really continues my work this month. I started out with Christine Michelle, who did financial abundance and bringing that in from the universe. So we're going to look at the other side with you and really look at, our relationship with that money, maybe some emotional things around it, how we function around money, what that looks like, and really deep dive into that financial literacy and what that looks like. So I'm super excited, Catherine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you for this opportunity, and it's been wonderful to have you in the beta class. You've added so much of your own experiences, perceptions, and your great feedback. You mirror, you help me kind of decide and focus where I need to go. So I just want to make that say thank you for that. And as you've pointed out, it's an interesting time that it just kind of came up that we're working together. We never kind of planned this. It's just kind of manifested itself. So I wanted to thank you for that too, and this opportunity to get help me on this journey to helping more women.
Thanks, Catherine. And I agree. I really think it was destined at that time for us to be working together. Everything just fell into place so perfectly. Super
Yeah,
excited to be
even
doing
that we
it.
can meet weekly,
Yes.
that we've been able to make that time in our busy schedule. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, like going through the different process of everything you're going to be teaching and having all the light bulbs go off. Not only is it a refresher, but it's also all of these aha moments and different perspectives and ways of looking at things, which is really great. Yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
excited
so
to
good.
bring those to our listeners today. So why don't you start off a little bit by telling us about who you are, how you
Sure.
started out, and what your background is with everything.
Sure. So I've been on the island about 18 years, and during that period of time, I've done a lot of things with my career. Um, but I'd like to start way back with how I even got into kind of bookkeeping or financial stuff. Back then it was just called 40, 50 years ago. Oh no, more than that. It was called something else, right? It was called bookkeeping, reconciling your checking account. But I was fortunate that my mother was an accountant, not so much a CPA. Surprisingly, she didn't want to be a CPA. She always loved to play when she went to the IRS. Oh, I'm a little old lady with a box of receipts, and she was very, very smart and would kind of wrap them around her little finger. But that's the introduction I had to financial literacy and bookkeeping, essentially. She always taught me that I could be anything. I wanted to be a lawyer. She was like, oh yes, you can do anything. But in her true Scottish fashion, she said I had to have a trade to fall back on, something like, carpenter or a cook, or in this case, bookkeeping. And so growing up, that's what we did together. We did bookkeeping. She would take me to the office. I learned how to reconcile checking accounts when I was 8 years old. I had my own 10 key machine. And so I was just kind of destined to understand numbers, and went on to become a math teacher. Got a degree in math and education, then got a master's in management with a focus on intercultural communications. And then I've had some certifications that help support that in terms of project management, and most recently, a financial education instructor certification.
Nice.
So it's been that thread has always run through my life in terms of bookkeeping and numbers, and now I'm into the next phase of my life, more the retirement phase, and consciously moving into that. And it seems like this is going to inform that as well. So that's how I got here.
Nice. So tell us about this program that you're going to be teaching.
Sure. So one of the things that motivated me about this is that last year I was sitting in the audience of the Professional Businesswomen's Conference in California, in a room with 5,000 women. As an aside, Kamala Harris spoke. That was really cool.
Nice.
But back to the subject here. There was a woman who was speaking about how important it was to put women in charge of big pockets of money, like managing investments, big, institutional, millions, billions of dollars. And that her experience was when women, she was an investment banker, if women were managing big parcels of money, that they could change the world. They would influence it with the kind of the feminization, as Toffler talked about, the fourth wave, the feminization of the workplace. But we see that the power is really in the money. And I sat there thinking that was a really cool idea. And so she had these funds that women could invest in. And being a systems thinker, I thought to myself, well, what kind of skills do the women in this room have to understand what this woman's talking about in terms of the impact on the world and how they get into it and understand what works for them? And I realized that there were lots of incredible programs out there being run by incredible women, but some of the basic skills that we need as working day, folks, we don't necessarily have. Is researching her investments. How would I know which one was good for me? Or when I'm watching a financial literacy seminar and they say, well, put it in a spreadsheet. And I know lots of people who would say, I don't even know what a spreadsheet is, or what is Excel, or is it even on my laptop? So that was one side, the basic skills to be able to take advantage of all these cool programs that are coming along. So I went to get a certification. Now I found this really cool organization, and I thought they're going to teach me how to teach what compound interest is, right? How to put a budget together. And it turned out that 90% of the it took me about 4 months to complete, of the education was about setting the right environment to talk about financial literacy, because it was so laden with emotions. It's not like when I learned algebra, or I was teaching algebra, nobody had any emotions other than hating it. When I learned English, I didn't have an emotion about it. But when you start to talk about money with people, it's their experiences, their parents' experiences, their significant others, decisions, good and bad, that they've made in the past, really are ingrained in how they think about this relationship. It truly is a relationship. And if they've had good experiences in the past with their money, it will help inform better relationships in the future. And so I was really realized that I didn't want to just make a video, like there's tons of them out there, but to have a very high touch experience with students, primarily with women, but I can see certainly a different way of addressing this with men maybe, but to establish a very collaborative, safe, and trusting environment, almost like group therapy, that we can talk about these relationships and work through them and work through making better decisions or different decisions, or being validated in our decisions. And so that's what I want to add to this amazing industry out there, is this side of looking at our psychology.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's so exciting. It's been a great experience to dive deep into where some of these originated from. Can you give our listeners some examples of how emotions play a role in how we look and function with money?
Sure. So we've talked about this, Liz, the concept of the more knowledgeable other.
Mhm.
And if your more knowledgeable other, in my case, it was my mother, has a good relationship with money, then I'm going to have a kind of a confidence. Now, it would have helped if I had paid attention to her earlier in my career, but I did make some mistakes. I got involved with a guy who ruined my credit. And so I started to question my confidence about making decisions about money. I felt that I didn't have the skills, and I certainly wasn't going to tell my mom I'd made a mistake or that I'd gotten deep into debt. And so that just just continued to make me feel badly about it until I had to sit back and actually look at, why do I feel like I can't make a good decision? Why do I feel I don't deserve to be prosperous? Oh, because I made a mistake in the past. So that's a personal example of how I was confident going in, and then even after some bad situations, that I began to feel uncomfortable and not confident with my decision making.
Great. Are there any examples you can give around, say somebody wants to purchase a car, or a teenager, or, a 20 something gets their first credit card or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that we've noticed in the class, and that we've talked about. And actually, we kind of discovered that this last Saturday
Yeah.
was the having 6 months worth of expenses saved. And you and I discovered that was one of the recommendations when a young person was getting ready to get their first credit card, was to make sure that they had saved 6 months worth of whatever their expenses were at that time, whether it was gas or whether it was going to the movies, whatever they spend those 6 months, that they save that. And that shows kind of the discipline needed, because if you can do that, then you can pay your credit card bill every month. So there was that concept. That was also a concept that we've talked a lot about with planning our goals and putting our objectives together, and making sure that as we manage our money, that we pay ourselves the 6-month cushion, and then we pay our retirement, and then we pay ourselves in terms of fund money. So that was a really interesting idea to use with someone who wasn't in the job market necessarily, or had a part-time job, was for them to think about planning 6 months worth of expenses and having it saved before they got a credit card. And I try to use in my training different analogies. So that reminded me of when a technique when a child wants a pet, a dog, was the mother said to the child, yes, you can have a pet if you walk around the block every day for 2 weeks and show that you have the discipline to take care of the dog. As it turned out, they didn't do that and get the dog, but it's that kind of thing. It proves to the person that they can do it as well. That was one of the interesting techniques we discovered.
Yeah, that was really fascinating, how there was this look, okay, how are you prepared before you do these things? What have you set up financially? The cushion, are you contributing to retirement? Or even before that, have you set up 6 months worth of savings to pay all of your bills in case something happens, like what's happening right now, right? Are you setting aside fund money for yourself, and, paying yourself first? And then the other 3 things that were really fascinating: are you a person who spends, as a saver, spend, below your means, within your means, or above your means. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And that was another interesting concept of categorizing yourself, helping you understand where you fit in financial planning. And if you don't really understand where you are, it's like you can't, unless you measure something, you can't change it because you don't know what your baseline is. So what is our baseline? Do we live within our means? Do we live below our means, or do we live above our means? Now, when I got in trouble with my credit, I was living beyond my means. Absolutely. And that meant I was spending more than I was taking in. And that was pretty much because I didn't have a budget. I was not watching where my money was going. And it was really easy to say, yeah, I don't know, what could another $25 do? Oh yeah, I really deserve to go out to the Red Fox for one more drink, right? So that was living beyond my means. And I didn't even know I was living beyond my means because I didn't have a budget. Living within your means is just there. You're spending as much as you're bringing in. That's better. The cost of living beyond your means, there is a huge cost in terms of somebody else is funding your living beyond your means, and that means they're charging you interest. Typically, you're living on credit, so you're paying for that convenience to live beyond your means. If you're living within your means, you're doing great. You're not paying that extra fee for the convenience, but you're also at a perilous kind of position if things get bad. If you lose your job, you have a medical problem, or you just want to be able to change your lifestyle, or you want to be able to help somebody else. You just don't have it. And this, of course, is assuming you don't have all the savings in place. Living below your means is all about consciously not spending as much as you bring in. And it's tough to do at first. I think that's my experience. But once you've done it, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You just love watching that number go up and not crying at the end of each month, paying your bills kind of thing. It feels better. But so living below your means is meaning you have more income at the end of the month, and then you can save it and help it grow to help you in the future.
Great.
But it takes planning. It's a conscious decision, and it's we hear this a lot, living consciously, and money is really important to you have to really be conscious about it, not obsessive.
You broke up a little bit there.
Oh, I did. Sorry about that.
Not obsessive about it. You were
Oh,
saying.
I see. I'm on.
Yeah.
The internet connection says it's unstable.
Yeah, it happens. It's okay.
Okay.
Everybody's on now these days. So you had brought up cards earlier, which made me think of hidden fees. And that was something that you had been talking about throughout all of the different sections and all the different meetings. And so discuss a little bit where all of these little hidden little pockets lay for us.
Well, yeah. So, and this gets back to very important, the psychology of how we get sucked into hidden fees. There's our capitalism, our economic structure lives off growth, and we're constantly encouraged to buy more, to spend more, to the point where we think we need to have a new car as soon as we pay off the old one, or we have to have a bigger house, or we just pay off our credit card, now we got more we can spend. So we're constantly inundated with growth. And to do that, to make us want to do that, is to also offer us a good deal. So quite often you'll see in a car ad, no down payment, no, zero down, 0% for the first 6 months. And you're like, great, I don't have a cent in my bank. I'm maxed out on my credit cards. I need a new car, or I think I need a new car. I want a new car, don't need a new car. And great, I'm going to go in and they're just going to give me a car for nothing. They're going to let me drive away. What typically happens then is you get in there, you negotiate, you're saying this is too good to be true. And the next thing you know, they're saying, well, we do have taxes that you need to pay, and we do have a service fee you need to pay. And we have a financing charge that you need to pay. And the next thing you know, it's cost you $1,000, and that's not what you expected. But now you're already there. You're already committed. Love the car. It's the color you wanted. It's seafoam green, and you always wanted a seafoam green 4-door. And now you're into the emotional buying. Back to the psychology. Now you're into emotion. I can't back away. I don't want them to think I can't afford it. And so now you have these hidden fees that you're now committing to something. All these fees they didn't put in the ad, and you are emotionally invested in making sure it happens. So you've extended yourself. And that happens a lot. That we talked about credit card fees, and they're going to make money regardless, and they got to make that in the car situation. They got to make some money up front. They're not going to just give you a car and let you walk away for 0 down and 0%.
Right. Yeah. And the credit card companies, and we did something last Saturday where we walked through that, this is how much cash I have. This is how much my credit balance is. This is how much we want to spend. And is that lunch with that friend worth that extra fee? Or is that outfit that you think you need, for that job interview worth that extra charge? What's that outfit going to end up costing at the end? Right? All really good things that we have to continue to think about, especially during times like this.
And we all hear this about interest rates, and get a lower rate card. That's another one of those bait and switch, right? Yeah, I'll get from one credit card to another credit card, and it's 0% for 6 months. And if I move it, right, then there's always a trade-off. There's always a trade-off in convenience. It's energetics. We just move the energy around.
Mm-hmm.
And so when one of the examples of having too many credit cards and moving them around is that impacts your credit rating. We talked about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the one about interest rates, and they always say, don't pay the minimum. And so we looked at a real exercise about what that meant. And I think it was a $1,500 credit balance, and the minimum payment was $33, and it would take 60 months to pay it off, and that the interest was going to be $2,600 on a $1,600 purchase. Credit cards are going to make money on us. That's why everybody has their own credit card. Why do you think the Seahawks have a credit card? And why do you think, your university has a credit card, right? They make a ton of money if we pay the minimum balance.
Right.
And so we need to look at credit cards like it's a loan and say, if I'm going to put a big purchase on a credit card, I'm going to pay it off in 12 months or whatever we decide, and then pay it off like that. If we let it string out, we're going to pay more for the purchase than we did in interest than we did for the actual purchase.
Mm-hmm. So if people have
The
gotten
credit cards are
themselves,
scary.
yeah, they are scary. If people have gotten themselves into credit card debt, what do you recommend for getting out of credit card debt?
This is good because I did not mention this up front. I don't give advice.
Okay.
I'm not a financial planner. I'm not certified for that, but I can tell you what Susie Orman said or what
Oh,
it said in our training.
love Susie.
Yeah, you love Susie Orman, so do I. I love Susie Orman. She's practical. She's very practical. She might not be, what I don't know, Nouriel Rubini might say about
Mhm.
credit cards, but uh, and this is common wisdom, I would say nowadays.
Yeah.
If you have multiple credit cards, you pick the one that has the highest interest rate and you pay that one down. So you pay the others with the minimum. This is one of those few situations where you do the minimum balance. And you do that so you can throw as much money as you possibly can at that higher interest rate credit card. And so you pay that one off and then you cut it up and then you move to the next one. And once you get them all paid down, then you continue to use them, but you commit to paying them off every month. If some people use credit cards, and I recommend this when like a small business, that they have a credit card they're using just for the business. My brother has a lot of properties that he manages, and he has one credit card for all the repairs that he does. So it makes it easier at tax time. But pay it off every month and don't let that balance build up. So credit cards are great to have. You need them if you want to travel. They're great for an emergency. And if you build your credit up with them, with a credit card company, you have leverage for reducing your rate over time, or if you get into some trouble and you do need to use your credit card for everyday expenses and have a balance, you can talk to them. You can, as long as you're in good standing with a credit card company, you can do some really interesting things with reducing your rate, getting on a payment plan, different things like that.
Right. Yeah, they're much
I
kinder.
could share my experience with American Express, right?
Yeah, they're much kinder with
That I
people
bought
who
my
have good
car.
credit standing.
Absolutely,
You want to share
absolutely,
your
because
story?
now you're in a partnership.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I talked about having challenges in the past as a youngin, but I did dig myself out, and as we discussed last week, your credit within 7 to 10 years, bad credit kind of falls off, and you've built up. So it's kind of like on the same cycle as recessions. And so when I went to buy my car for my last big birthday, I bought a used car, but I called American Express beforehand and said, I'm going to buy a car in the tens of thousands. And is that okay? And they said yes. And so when I went to I paid, I'd saved up my cash for this. So what I did is went to the dealer, used my American Express. They were fine with that. And I got all those miles. And because I already had the money and saved for the car, I paid off the American Express bill right away, but I got lots of miles for that.
Yeah, that's another bonus.
So that's gaming the system.
Yes. And you get to travel. Yep. Another
Yeah,
spot,
exactly.
yeah. Another spot that fees can hide are regular banks as opposed to credit unions. Yeah,
Really good
let's talk
point.
about that a
So
little bit.
banks are all about, sure, banks are all about, they've got stockholders and they're in competition with each other to get stockholders who invest money and allow them to expand, and they're really, and they've got big salaries. They've just got a different kind of prestige and model for making money, where credit unions are owned by the people who invest or who are actually deposit, who are customers of the bank. So Puget Sound, OCCU, there's another one that I belong to, Grow. They keep their fees down because we are the owners. We want to keep our fees down. We want to keep the money in the bank and turn it over and lend it to the members. And, it's kind of like a cooperative. The trade-off with that is, with Puget Sound, we can't do, we don't have quite the technology that, say, Bank of America has. So I can't take a picture of a check and immediately it goes into my credit union. But I'm willing to forego that convenience because the fees are lower in a credit union. And also credit union, it's easier to establish a relationship typically because there are smaller offices and they do rely on people coming in and out. You can see Bank of America doesn't even have an office on Vashon anymore, but OCCU and Puget Sound does. So they're really much more about the relationship with the person. And keeping the money rolling through the organization, people depositing, and also them lending that money out to the community, to their their cooperative.
Yeah, it's nice. OCCU is starting to do take a picture of the check and starting to implement some of those other things that the other banks have. So that's nice. And for our listeners who are, outside of Vashon Island or in the big cities or in another state also, yeah, credit union is really the way to go. Skip all of those fees has been really nice. Yep. I've been a member of a credit union for years now. Let's see.
And do you find that works with, I think most people worry about ATMs. Do you find that you don't have that problem as much anymore?
No, not as much
traveling because you travel.
Yeah, I do. I travel. One, I try not to use them, first of all, but if I have to, usually they have a sister bank or another credit union will recognize that you bank with a credit union, so you won't get a fee. So it is worth, if you're going to travel, to look into who they partner with and look for those. And then if not, I just kind of skip it. And sometimes you can go into the grocery store now and get money back, if you're using your debit card. So there's that too. There are ways around that.
Yeah, when you're picking up your bag of Cheetos.
Exactly. Right. So we've used our credit cards. We are talking about the bank. Let's talk about credit rating. How do we keep our credit rating high? And if someone has a low credit rating, how do they work to get it up?
Okay, so this is a really deep subject. Yeah. Lots of moving parts on this, and I should have the checklist around here. Oh, I just might have the checklist with me. Right. But so credit, the thing about credit that has surprised me over the years, I've been in this game a long time, meaning the game of life, and credit scores used to just impact if you got a credit card or the interest rate on a credit card, or if you got a mortgage, or if you got a loan, for a car loan. But now it's being used in ways that we talked about this on Saturday, that can really impact your life negatively and in something that's completely unrelated to your what you're trying to get. For example, it can impact your car insurance. You could get a higher car insurance because your credit rating is low. Now, nothing in that credit rating says that you had a catastrophic health issue that hasn't impacted your driving. Your driving's great. Why should you have to pay more for insurance when you're a good driver? Because you had something that impacted your credit rating. The other, it also impacts, we talked about, loans and things like that. It can also impact getting a job. So now, we might say, I'm financially independent. I got enough money in the bank. I'm not really worried about, I don't want a credit card. I want to be completely off the grid. That can also negatively impact your credit rating. And so now it starts to get into your insurance, getting a job, different aspects of your life. So it's really, really important. I think the analogy we talked about on Saturday was, it's like getting good grades. in school? Will you get a better job? Will you maybe get into a better college? Will you, it kind of impacts that way. Think of it as your report card. So the best way, this is always hindsight, right, is to start off thinking about that. And this was part of that conversation of having 6 months saved up before you get your first credit card, so that when you get your credit card, you can pay it off every month, because you really need to have a credit card, some type of credit, to establish your credit rating. Because if you don't have one, they're not going to say Catherine's an 800 because she's never had a loan in her life. I'm an unknown. And if I'm an unknown, they're still going to look at my, not going to rate me high. They're going to err on the side of caution. So we do need to establish credit. Credit cards are a good way, a mortgage, car loan. And then we have to make those payments religiously. And that's where automatic bill pay is really helpful, to make sure that we don't miss any of those payments. Now, once you've established your credit with a credit card and you miss a couple payments just because, a health reason, or you just didn't have automatic bill pay going on, they're not you have a good relationship with them, and they're not going to report you to the credit bureau once you've established that. But before then, what happens if you miss a payment, miss two? It shows up on your credit report, and it will say, in the last 6 months, Catherine missed 2 payments. Or in the last 2 years, Catherine missed 12 payments. It actually gets down to that detail, and other organization, and that then affects that 3-digit number. Are you a 750 or a 619? It affects that number, and then that number can be used by other people. Like I said, a job, another loan, your insurance. So it's important that you don't miss payments, that you don't open a lot of credit cards. If you have 2 or 3, pay them off on a regular basis, and don't start credit card shopping. I've done that in the past. Oh, here's a 0 credit, I could use that. And the next thing you got 6 or 7 credit cards. They look at that. That's not looked on favorably. It looks like you're trying to spread or try to live on credit cards. Mm-hmm. So better to pay them off and establish 2 or 3. Like I said, my husband's American Express is 1969, member since. Get one that you feel comfortable with, 2 or 3, and then that's it. Don't fall into, ooh, I need one that has a Seahawks logo on it.
Right. Oh, that's great advice.
Yeah. I'm looking to see, we had that checklist, didn't we, on
yeah, we did.
What to do. I'm trying to look for that.
Find that, we'll go back to it. How about setting a budget to make sure we're not tapping into that credit?
Yeah. So the budget one is all about discipline. There's a joke. How many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is 1, but the light bulb has to want to change. And so how many financial planners does it take to make a budget? But just 1, but the light bulb has to want to make that budget. So it takes some discipline. Now, there are tools out there that can help you with the first step. The first step is understanding how much you spend and how you spend it, and looking for those opportunities to cut expenses. Now, I'm sorry, my light bulb seems to be going dimming here on me. There we go. So the first thing is to figure out how much you spend. Now, there's I've heard of this tool called Mint. My niece uses it, and the research I've done on it seems pretty good, where you can bring everything together: your investment accounts, your bank accounts, your saving accounts, credit unions, the money so you've got your income and expenses there. If you're primarily using credit cards or debit cards, better to use debits, because then you can only spend as much as you've got. and it will it will track all those. And you can then take those expenses and categorize them in the tool, I believe, and then see how you're spending money and see where you have opportunity. I did that recently, well, at the beginning of this year, because every year my husband and I sit down and look at our finances. Believe me, it's fun for me, but he
That's a
gets
great
involved.
idea.
Yeah, we do. It's part of our New Year's. What did we fix on the house, and how are we doing financially? And so we looked at that, and I did say, you know what? Let's try and live like we're on our retirement income. And where do we have to save? And certainly one of them was some of the premium TV channels. Some of them was some things that, not my black turtlenecks. Those are still on the list. But everything else was fair game to look and see but unless you track it, unless you're willing to look at it, and then, and you might have to make some really tough choices. You might have to look at it and say, I can't afford this car, or the kids have to start, have to get a job to help pay for their insurance, or, maybe I need to move. And that's one of the things my husband and I talk about too, is that kind of drop dead. And early on in having the house, we, like during the 2008 recession, when things started getting really bad, we had to look at it and say, how bad does it have to be before we have to drastically change our lifestyle? I didn't want to make that decision when I was freaked out, laid off, had a catastrophe. I wanted to know that if these 3 indicators happened in my life, then I was emotionally ready to make a dramatic change. And that's part of that psychology of finance, is having those hard discussions with yourself, and sometimes making the sacrifice, because the world in which we've based our assumptions have changed. But it's awareness at that point. So anyway, yes, you have to have, so you figure out how much you've spent, how you spend your money, and then you look at the budget. You say, okay, $100 a month on my premium channels, because that certainly is my addiction, and I will cut out my lattes, and I'll cut out the expensive wine. I'll buy the cheaper wine. And I'll go out for coffee instead of a full-on dinner. And you start to make those adjustments, and then you check that every month and say, okay, I said I have $75 for going out with my girlfriends, and I spent 60. Great. Maybe next month I'll spend 90 instead of 75. So you begin to actually see your money. And one of the things I've discovered when my niece lived with us is that we don't have the relationship with our money like we used to.
Yeah.
When we got a paycheck and we cashed it, and we paid for our gasoline with cash, and I went to the market and I paid cash, I really did see in my wallet, oh yeah, I don't have enough to make it through the end of the week. And we just don't see that like we used to.
Yeah, no.
So budgeting's a little harder.
Yeah. And that debit card.
I can budget easily when I see I got $20 left, right?
Right. And I know a lot of people, I hear, oh, I need to check my account, or, because that debit card feels like the credit card, and oh, here it is, here it is. And then a lot of people don't keep track anymore, keep a ledger, like when we had a checkbook, and we could just, write in the ledger everything that we were doing. And, sometimes it's easy to just pop online and like say, okay, this is what I've spent, and this is how much they say I have left, and that sort of thing. But then you have to have a running tally of what's coming up, because a lot of things are automated now. Okay, so what's going to come out?
You're so right.
What's going to come out there? It's totally different than when I was 20 years old, 30 years ago, or even 30. For
Yeah,
35. Yeah, it's totally different. I agree.
it's so different. And when I was in my 20s, and I remember a woman who I think her husband had passed away, and so she was learning about money, and she was trying to teach her daughters about it. And what she did is went to the bank, cashed her check, and literally brought the money home and put it in front of them, and then had them literally touch it and say, okay, here's what an electric bill costs. Pull that money out. Okay, here's what food costs. Take, okay, how much is left? And help them really see what that really meant. And I learned so much from that, there's those aha moments that we've talked about.
Right.
Um, yeah, and I encourage that if your kids are in an age where they I used to be a high school math teacher, so these things kind of come to mind. It's these kind of tools to help kids because there isn't financial literacy out there. And even if there is, it's a just in time kind of training. It's JIT. The light bulb has to be willing to learn,
Yeah, and it's
or
nice
it has to
to have
be
that
some
vision.
context.
Yeah. That visual you were describing is
Yeah,
great, because they don't have that
yeah,
concept. And then they get the job and then
yeah.
they see it start to dwindle super fast. They're like, oh, I have to slow down my spending. I'm
Yeah.
almost out of money. I have one that's just new on his own, and he's like working out his budget and how much, categorizing everything. How much does this cost? How much is my insurance? How much is my payment for this? And this is how much I have, for the whole month. So it's fun to watch him, start to do the process. Have some
Oh,
emotional
fantastic.
intelligence around it is really nice. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
And where did he learn his skills?
And like all children from
Was it
their
in school?
parents, I'm thinking, and then from his own experience, because he was a lifeguard at 15. So I think having that experience early on with money and what he was going to spend it on, and if he wanted to save it, and he liked to buy special things for himself. So
Mm,
he would save for those special things that he wanted to purchase. Yeah. So it was good for him to have that early experience before he left the house, for sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun to watch.
I've seen the opposite, more of the opposite.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
talk about, since we were talking about our budget, wants versus needs a little bit,
Ooh,
and how that plays
yeah.
emotionally.
Yeah, yeah. That, and it's interesting. And from being in these meetings with me, I have a tendency to think big picture. I'll use a biological analogy, and I'll use something out of H.T. Odom in terms of systems, philosophy or theories, and so I may bring one up in this question,
Sure.
but and actually I just forgot the question.
Wants versus needs.
Right. Okay. So I was a consultant in Oracle. I still work there, but that's how I started. And one of the things we learned very quickly is that um, when a customer wanted something versus needed something, and they always wanted what they had and not what they needed. And it was our job to help them down the path to show them what they really needed, not what they wanted. And so that helped me. For example, I really wanted a new car, but did I need a new car? No, I needed transportation, and so I didn't need a new car. I needed a used car. So it's looking at what you need, not what society is telling you want. You want to keep up with the you wear Calvin Klein. Now I'm dating myself. It's really, what do I need? I really just need a pair of jeans, right? So the difference between so we have to look at how when we're planning for something, or we know we have a big, well, it could be a little one. I need to go out to dinner, but do I need to go to Canlis or can I go to Perry Burgers, right? So what do I really need is one of those things that we have to build that muscle memory when we're purchasing something is what do I need and versus what do I want? And then once I figure out what I need, is what I'm willing to pay for it. And then is it worth it in the long run? So you and I talked about kind of interest rate, or what was it we were talking about? I think some kind of payment. It was $25. And something I learned from my husband is, how much money do you have to have in the bank to generate enough return on that money, interest typically, to pay for that, right? So do I have enough discretionary income, and do I have enough savings that I can afford to pay that amount of money? So we look first at emotion. Why do we want to purchase this thing? Is it a want or a need? If it's a need, how much do we need it? How much are we willing to pay for it? And if we look at how much it's going to cost us in the long run, interest rate, taking out of savings and losing that, the way we're growing our money, there are a lot of things to look at. Is that what you had in mind?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good direction, which takes us into what we're experiencing right now. So I'm sure a lot of people are asking that question right now, that want versus need question with, maybe they've lost their job, maybe they're on unemployment, maybe their hours have been cut and they're facing like, okay, what are my wants and what are my needs? What skills would you offer, our listeners to be able to better manage, what we're experiencing right now, and these markers that are kind of pointing us towards recession?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, we are in a recession.
Okay.
The indicators that confirm we're in a recession are lagging indicators. They're showing us where we've been. They're probably 6 months old. We probably went into a recession the beginning of this year. We started to move that way. Now, what's interesting about what's happening now is that there seems to be this exuberance, this false exuberance about the market, the economy, and it's going to that bubble, and it's not based on anything tangible. If you read Seeking Alpha, or you read Yahoo Finance, it's like the basics in which we measure a sound economy are not there. For example, the debt, our debt, our deficit, the national deficit, is huge compared to the way it was, 4 or 5 years ago, right? And that's going to come to haunt us at some point. So what we need to do, I think it gets back to one of the things I said earlier, is in preparation for this, we are in a recession. We can identify that by just looking at our community. Are people losing their jobs? Are they having their hours cut? Are we seeing fewer lines at places that we used to see them? We can see when a recession is happening, when the money starts to constrict. I think we can say that. And so we're already there, and the decisions that we needed to make to weather a recession really needed to be in place, like the 6 months of expenses in a savings account. Or I just watched a seminar on preparing for the recession and having a side hustle they called it. It was all about just work, 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 find any job that you can and work and make tough decisions about, like I talked about, what's my drop dead? If things are bad enough, how do I dramatically change? Do I get a roommate? Do I move back to Florida? Do I, this is a tough time to think about really open eyes, scary, what kind of decisions do I need to make? And so one of the things I did learn recently is certainly we know there's unemployment. And something I did not know is if you've had your hours cut, you can still get unemployment. So I did not know that. A reduction in hours, that was it. And you can apply for unemployment. It's a little difficult for those of us who don't have that kind of safety net of a corporation that's been paying unemployment for us. And so that's where it's really important to start saving. Susie Orman will tell you right now, don't spend anything. Don't spend anything. Your needs, food, shelter. We're on the bottom tier, second from the bottom tier of Maslow's hierarchy, which is security. And we have to feel empowered to say, no, I can't afford that birthday party. I can't afford that donation. I have to save everything. If you save everything and you come out of this a year later and you're great, yeah, donate, do all of that. But right now you have to protect yourself, because if you don't protect yourself, you can't add back. This is like when I manage the emergency response teams. Don't become a victim. Take care of yourself first so that you can take care of others later. And don't sacrifice yourself. So it's a tough time right now. I hate to sound gloom and doom, but we really need to make some hard decisions on what we do with our money and our future right now.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for sharing that.
I feel uncomfortable smiling after that.
Great advice. That was great advice that people need to hear. No, thank you. And I think that's a great place for us to stop. Is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with before we end?
Sure. After that gloom and doom, recessions happen every 6 to 10 years. And so we can prepare for them. We should always have 6 months of expenses. We should pay ourselves first, and that means in our retirement and in our savings and our emergency funds. We are worth it, and we need to take care of ourselves. And we're going to come out of this, and we're going to do great. We always come out of it.
Yes. And how can people reach you if they want to take your class?
Oh, okay. I have just established a website called Finlit Freedom. And as you know, you and are my beta class. Yes. And so I've learned a lot from that. And now I need to figure out what's the best tools to put in place so that we can make it efficient and trusting and safe. And so yeah, I believe there's on my Finlit Freedom website a contact link, so you can get to me through there.
Great. And can you spell that website for us?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's like financial literacy, FINLIT freedom.com.
Great. And do you have an email by any chance?
And I'll make you the contact. Do I have what?
Do you have an email by any chance?
I think it's info@finlitfreedom.com.
Great. info@finlitfreedom.com. FINLITFREEDOM.com. Catherine, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Super excited to get this information out. I hope everybody enjoys it. Everybody, Catherine Cochrane please look her up, look up the website and email her if you'd like to work with her. She's wonderful to work with. Lots of fun, tons of information. It's been a pleasure. Catherine, thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz. You've been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Great. Have a good night. And thank you for joining me, everyone.
too.
Again, this is Liz, Raise the Vibe with Liz. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe, everybody. Thank you. Bye now.